Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, brought to you by our primary sponsor, 3Court. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and today on the show we have Wauseon head wrestling coach and Mike Ritter. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show today, Coach.
I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, well, let's go ahead. Let's kick off the interview with you first telling us a little bit about your background and how you got involved with the sport of wrestling.
Well, I'm actually originally from Wauseon, so I'm a graduate of Wauseon, born and raised here. Kind of moved away in post high school, came back, but my involvement in getting involved in wrestling really started just in the seventh grade. I didn't know anything about wrestling, and myself and a friend of mine were on our way to basketball tryouts, and we got caught in the hallway by the rest of the junior high wrestling coach, Mr. Dave Moore. And he asked us, hey, where are you two going? And we told him we were going to basketball tryouts. And he snatched us up and said, nah, why don't you come to wrestling practice instead? So, that seventh grade year was a real learning process. But I really fell in love with the sport. And I just kind of grew with the sport as time went on, and kept at it through high school, and didn't wrestle collegiately. I decided to go to college, but maybe not necessarily wrestle, but spent a year in college, and just really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I ended up joining the Air Force. It took me out to California, and I was stationed out there and met a guy on base who was a member of the enlisted team, and we got to know each other pretty well. And next thing I know, I'm following him up to Colorado Springs and wrestling basically full time for about 6 months with the Air Force enlisted team, and got introduced to Greco-Roman wrestling, which that's like learning a foreign language. It's really difficult to learn if you've never done it. I kind of, again, just that kind of helped me really get a more well-rounded knowledge of the sport. I went back to my normal job in the Air Force and got out a little bit early. My wife and I moved back to Ohio. And as I moved back, that was about the time that my younger brother was about a junior in high school. And I decided that I really wanted to help him. I kind of missed a lot of his junior high and high school years. So I was able to see those last 2 years up close and personal. And really, I think for me personally, I didn't really accomplish a lot of the goals that I'd set for myself as a wrestler in high school. Kind of left me wanting more. I think the competitiveness with the Air Force enlisted team, and then coming back and getting involved with the program at Wauseon High School, just volunteering at the time, while my brother was wrestling his junior and senior year, really kind of got the coaching bug installed in me. And once he graduated, I'm like, man, I kind of like this. And it led me to coaching at Findlay High School for 7 years before we moved back to Wauseon back in 2004. So, that's a pretty short version of a long story. So it's been a wild ride, and I've been coaching for 26 years now, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I would say you definitely have an interesting background. I didn't even know that personally about you, but a couple key things I thought were very unique is you kind of mentioned starting like in seventh grade, and I think that's kind of a topic I'll touch on later. Is I feel like more and more wrestlers kind of get involved, and sometimes they do get involved a little later. But why don't you tell kind of like the audience and listeners how Greco-Roman kind of varies compared to like high school wrestling, that type of style, and what kind of things did you take from that wrestling style into your coaching for Wauseon High School?
Well, it's a style of wrestling that you're not allowed to attack your opponent's legs. So everything is from the waist up. And that's a real difficult thing to do, especially if you have come through Scholastic, which is what the junior high and high school athletes compete in, the style that they compete in, Scholastic, where you're constantly attacking the legs. And boy, that's again, it's like learning a foreign language. But what it taught me was how to be in really good position when we're both in the standing position, in the neutral position. And that really helped my hand fighting skills, really helped me to just kind of get that coordination and balance, because you're pushing a lot and trying to get that brief small opening to attack the upper body. And
Sure.
I'm not a big guy, and so it did teach me a little bit about some upper body, some throws, some body locks, and kind of helps me help our upper weight guys compete, because they aren't necessarily the type of kids that are going to take leg attacks like a lightweight wrestler.
Right,
so
right.
It gave me a little bit more well-rounded style of wrestling to be able to coach and pass on to our kids.
Nice. The next question I had kind of going into it, along with your background, is I'm sure you've had multiple coaches throughout growing up and influenced your wrestling philosophy and coaching strategies. Touch on that just a little bit, and what you kind of picked up throughout your wrestling career and how you implement that into your coaching nowadays.
Yeah, boy, I've been around a lot of people, and I try to take a little bit of the positive side from everybody that I come in contact with. Obviously, Dave Moore, my first coach at the junior high, was a huge influence on me, and he really stressed the fundamentals and how important those are, and just making sure that everything is correct when you're learning, when you're drilling, when you're practicing, to make sure that muscle memory is where it needs to be, just to be solid with your fundamentals. So he really had that impact on me as far as what I took out of that into coaching. Steve Schneider was my high school coach. Steve was a fantastic human being. He's one of the nicest guys that I've been around, and really taught me a lot of organizational skills, planning as far as just strategic things with dual meets. He's a math teacher, so he was constantly doing the math in his head about, okay, we need to score this many points, if this happens. So he was 3 steps ahead in a dual meet setting, so that he was planning 3 steps ahead of what was actually going on. So that I took that from him. When I got to the Air Force, it was just a Rich Estrella, who was a Greco-Roman coach for the U.S. Olympic team at one point. He really taught us a lot about just high level training and what that means, and how to prepare correctly, how to treat your body correctly, how to recover correctly. So a lot of those things, again, I'm just taking a little bits and pieces from everybody. When I got to Findlay High School, I was working with Jim McGonnell, and he really taught me a lot about just working with different levels of kids in terms of how to connect with them. I think that's really, really important at the high school level in any sport, is that kids have to trust you.
Definitely.
And Jim just had a real unique way of connecting with kids, and those kids just loved him. And I just took a lot of that on how he treated those kids, and kind of incorporate that now with how I coach. And at the high school in Wauseon, I've coached with so many different guys at the high school level, but one of the guys that came in for a couple of years, Scotty Burnett, he and I really kind of connected and clicked real well. We learned a lot from each other. I learned a lot of different style of technique that we still use today, and Scotty obviously has been very successful now that he has moved on to the Perrysburg program. So, yeah, I try to take a little bit of everything from people that I come in contact with and try to incorporate it into our program.
Yeah, that's awesome. And each coach had their own specific thing, and you just took it and ran with it. And I think that's what makes a great coach, is someone that can continue to learn from those that have taught them. But I really like how you mentioned too, your first coach, just really preaching the foundations and then the basics of wrestling, because I feel like with a lot of sports, even kids and sometimes even coaches tend to overlook the very basics, and those kind of get forgotten at times. But I mean, those are kind of your building blocks that everything else falls off of. So I think that is very good on your side of things for coaching. But next question I had for you is, have you always had aspirations of coaching wrestling at the high school level?
No.
Really? Yeah.
I think that if I would have accomplished some of the goals that I'd set for myself in high school, I probably wouldn't be coaching. So, after high school ended, and it was really disappointing. It just kind of, I don't know. It just left me wanting more. And I think that coming back and helping with my brother, I kind of helped him achieve some of the goals that I had set for myself, and he was able to accomplish those. It was kind of like a weight lifted off of my shoulders, and then I started realizing that, hey, I still love the sport, even though I'm past the time to actually physically compete, but I can pass on a lot of stuff and have a lot of fun with it, and so that's where it really started. And again, looking back now, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And I think that's funny to hear, because some guys right away, they know, man, when I get down the road, I really want to coach. And other coaches, it just kind of comes almost spontaneously. So that's funny that just kind of came about. And you've done a nice job with it. So next question leading in here, you were named the NFHS Ohio Boys Wrestling Coach of the Year back in the 2018-2019 season. Also named the Division II Coach of the Year by Northwest Ohio Wrestling Coaches Association just a few years ago as well. Wauseon has also been a powerhouse for wrestling over the years, and you've definitely carried on that tradition. What do you believe is the reason why Wauseon wrestling is so successful?
First and foremost, it's the support group that we have. It's not, it's great for me to win those awards, but it's not just about me. It's about a lot of the people that are working behind the scenes. It's the assistant coaches that I have that are helping me. It's our youth program. It's our junior high program, the coaches that are involved with that. We have a tremendous parent support system that really kind of helps send the same message to their kids that we're trying to send, that, hey, we have to work at a certain level to achieve success. And our kids have completely bought into that. It took some time when I got to Wauseon for kids to buy into what my program was about. And that's normal. The transition between one coach to another. But as they started to buy in, they saw the success that we were promising them they would achieve if they at least worked at this level. And of course, there's never any guarantees, but they saw the improvement, and they saw that they were competing with some of the guys or kids or teams that they had put on a pedestal that, we're never going to get there. And well, we got there, and we maybe surpassed certain teams and kids and programs. And I think it's just, they started to believe in it and kept the tradition, because nobody wants to be the group that kind of drops off. And, certainly that time comes for everybody. And I'm sure that time is coming for us as well at some point. But, for now, our kids are bought in, and the support system we have around it is the reason why we've been as successful as we have.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, 3Chord. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign and promotional items to customers in Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube, and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on tenorarams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast. Logan Bailey here with Wauseon head wrestling coach Mike Ritter. So continuing on here, Coach, a lot of times a great team not only has an excellent head coach, but also assistant coaches as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your assistant coaches and the importance they play in the success of the Wauseon wrestling program?
Yeah, I think we have a really good coaching staff that really we're all pulling in the same direction. It's been a pretty consistent group. I've got two other contracted coaches, Joe Torres and Nick Toole, that have been with me for several years now. And we have a slew of volunteers, and to name them all, I probably would forget someone, and I don't want to do that. But they help in support system in terms of being able to help cover our tournaments that we go to. We run kind of two separate schedules, a varsity and a varsity B, and we are split a lot. So our kids are going to one place and another the same weekend. So our coaching staff really has to divide and conquer, and they have been very consistent with the things that they do on a day-to-day basis. When we're in practice, we're all sending the same message. And it's really fun to coach with guys that have the same mindset and like thinking that you do. And it's just a real joy to have those guys around me and the kids.
Now, next question, kind of leading into, I know we kind of touched on it before, your background with coaching and some of the things you've taken from your coaches, but is there a certain philosophy that you try to teach the athletes, such as being maybe more aggressive or more patient, or is that kind of based individually on each wrestler? Or why don't you tell me a little bit about what you like to teach your kids at Wauseon?
I think we teach a pretty aggressive style of wrestling. I think that we are always looking to score points. That's kind of how we approach the sport. There are some mindsets and concepts of maybe it's better to be a more defensive wrestler. And I like that attacking style. I think that's the better way to go. That's how we teach our kids. The kind of the model that we throw out there quite a bit is that you have to be tough, you have to be smart, and you have to be in good position every match. If you do those three things, you're going to at least give yourself a chance to win. So that's kind of how we train. We have some core values that we have that are like a big banner up in our practice room of what we feel those things are to be a part of Wauseon Wrestling. The very first one is to train at a high level every day. So, that's what we expect, and that's the high pace of wrestling that we like to have at Wauseon.
Yeah, and I appreciate that a lot. You saying like really preaching the high intensity wrestling, because even like I know I played football at college at the University of Findlay, but I mean, a lot of times you practice how you play. So, I mean, you're going out there giving 110% in practice. That's going to carry and transition over to the wrestling mat, the football field, whatever it is, the sport you're playing. But I definitely think that's a big thing to preach. And I mean, you're hitting that on the head for sure. Next one I had, you guys have been to a lot of different meets this year. What has been the team's biggest accomplishment of the season to this point?
I would say that, well, that's kind of a tough question because our team has really been inconsistent in terms of having the same lineup from event to event. It really wasn't until the very first event at our tournament at Perrysburg that we had our full lineup together. And we really performed well at that event. We were runner-up to Perrysburg, which that is actually turning into a very, very good tournament from Northwest Ohio. So I think for us, that was kind of like, okay, now that we have everybody in the lineup, we could actually be pretty good. So after that tournament, oddly enough, we lost one of our starters. And so we went into our tournament at Maumee Bay minus that starter, but we still finished at an upper level of that event as far as team points go. So, I mean, I think those two things kind of stand out that we can kind of look at those and say, hey, this is where we could be when we have everybody together.
That's nice to see, where you kind of almost, I feel like you can gauge your team and where you're sitting at before getting to like tournament time and stuff like that. But I know we kind of mentioned team-wise, but going on, you guys have some very talented individuals as well. I believe Borofan has 11 Wauseon wrestlers currently ranked in the top 25 in their respective weight classes in Division II. Just to highlight a couple, I mean, you have a few of the top-ranked ones in the top 10. You have guys like Colin Twigg. He was rated number 2 at 126, Zayden Kessler, number 4 at 165, Benicio Torres, number 7 at 144, and Zayden Torres, number 9 at 132. I mean, you guys have a ton of other wrestlers that are excellent as well. But what has it been like to coach a group of such talented wrestlers, and what makes this year's team special?
Oh, it's been really fun. I think that our group of seniors have been very, very successful throughout their wrestling career, starting at the youth level. And not only have they been successful on the mat, they've been very successful in the classroom as well. Most of them are carrying a very, very good GPA. And it's just kind of nice to see that student athlete thing really play out. We preach that a lot, that the grades are important. What you're doing outside of the wrestling room is important. So to watch those kids and our group compete in practice every day, prepare every day, and know that they're still doing the work outside of the wrestling room for the classroom. That's been a fun thing because there have been some years where we've really struggled with some kids with grades, and that's not been a fun situation. But this year, with very few exceptions, we haven't had to worry about that. So I think that's really been fun to be able to be a coach of true student athletes.
And I'm sure that's nice on your side of things. You don't have to worry about kids maybe being eligible or getting in trouble with things like that. And everyone, coaches, athletes, everyone on the same page. They can just focus about the sport of wrestling because they're taking care of their books in the classroom. So I think that's definitely a key contributor to a successful program. So wrestling season is coming down the home stretch here. What is it going to take for your wrestlers to place high at state and as a team?
Well, we have a pretty important event coming up on Saturday. We host the I'm not sure if they're calling it the regional duels or district dual meet tournament. We host Cleveland Benedictine, Sandusky Perkins, and Napoleon. It's kind of it's a 4-man bracket, and the winner of that bracket advances to the team state tournament. We'll have our work cut out for us. All 3 teams are very good. We'll have to prepare very well this week, but we feel good that if we put that work in this week, that we should see hopefully some good results. And that's the first time since 2018 that we would be able to qualify for the team state tournament. So it's going to take a really good week of preparation, a good week of being healthy, and we'll have to put it all together on Saturday. As we look to the individual state tournament, we're really not quite sure yet what our district looks like in terms of some of the teams that are coming. I think once we get a little bit more clear picture there, it'll help us maybe map out what our number of qualifiers may look like. But again, those are all guesses at best, and we got to go perform, and training is the big part of that. So we can have a good guess of how we'll do, but we gotta back it up with preparation and performance.
And I do just want to add one comment about what I love about your team is the energy that they bring, because I was able to go against to your guys' meet with Tenor and Finley, and just the energy level and support from your guys in the chairs, and it was just phenomenal. And I think that camaraderie with each wrestler has to really benefit your team as well.
Yeah, it's been a good group in terms of they all like each other, and that's sometimes we've had some groups where maybe you get your little cliques here and there, but
sure.
This group I think really genuinely likes each other and they're very supportive of one another. We've had some situations where maybe a guy has lost a match that maybe shouldn't have, and their teammates are right there. Hey, let's go. Let's pick this guy up and let's win this next match for him. So I mean, it's good to see that. It's fun to see that team environment, because sometimes in the sport of wrestling, the individual side takes over and the team aspect gets a little lost.
We're going to take our next break and to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243.
LC Tiger Sports Live is your home for Liberty Center sports, providing quality coverage that includes live HD video feed and excellent commentary throughout the year. Check out their Facebook page at lctigersportslive.com for more.
Optimal Performance Fitness is your go-to gym in Northwest Ohio, providing group fitness classes, personal training, and sports performance sessions for area athletes. Located in Napoleon, Ohio, give them a call today at 419-438-7265.
The Drop Zone Pizzeria is the #1 voted pizza restaurant in the region. Check them out for pizza, wings, subs, and more. Located in Ayersville and Stryker, or contact them about their new traveling food trailer.
We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast. So just a few odds and ends questions here during the last section of the podcast. So the first question I have is, who was the best wrestling team Wauseon has competed against this season? And who was the best wrestler, other than your wrestlers, that you watched this season?
Wow. Well, we ran into Brecksville in the first weekend of the season, and they put a whooping on us. They are really good. And they have some really, really good kids. We've seen a lot of good wrestlers throughout the season. I'm not sure if I could pick out one in particular, but I would say from top to bottom, man, that Brecksville team is absolutely stacked. And when we wrestled Perrysburg at the Frickers duels, they didn't have their full lineup together. We didn't either. But I would say that if we ever ran into a dual meet, which we haven't this year, but a dual meet with Perrysburg would be pretty challenging for us as well, because they have just an outstanding team. This year is phenomenal.
Now, I kind of mentioned it earlier going into this next question about kids kind of starting later with wrestling. And I mean, you keep hearing stories about kids kind of get involved maybe a little later, similar situation to you. Maybe they're playing basketball and they decide, maybe this isn't for me, and kind of transition over to wrestling. But I think a lot of that has to do with the sport of wrestling just growing as well. I think there's getting more and more publicity and kind of getting put out there. But my question for you is, if you had a piece of advice for a newcomer in the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
I think that my biggest advice is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And like a lot of things, the first time you get exposed to it, if it's brand new, it might take a while to figure it out. And everybody develops at a different rate. Some kids have a lot of success early, and sometimes those kids are really hard to coach because they think, hey, I've won this tournament, that tournament, and I don't need to change anything. And there are those kids that maybe have to work really hard to achieve any level of success, and those are kids that are maybe more coachable. So it's really difficult to evaluate kids at the youth level. I don't think you really get a good sense of what they will be or potentially be until about maybe 5th or 6th grade. But yeah, that would be my biggest advice. And that's the thing that we talk about with our youth parents that are brand new, that you have to give it some time. Your son or daughter is not going to be just instantly the best wrestler in the room. Right. They're going to take some lumps. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard as a parent to watch, but give it time. Let us help your kid become better.
Yeah, and I'm sure with that too, in the process, there's some quote unquote growing pains with the process as well. So it's just crazy to see, because I mean, you do have these wrestlers that have been wrestling since they're like 5-6 years old, and then sometimes you get them thrown in with someone who's just started first year, and it's just crazy to see the difference. But not to say, I feel like you said too, it just takes some time for them to kind of get their technique down and really get used to the sport in general. That's one thing too. I've been watching a lot more wrestling. So I played basketball in high school. I've never been a wrestling guy, but my brother recently got into it, and man, I tell you what, I actually like watching wrestling more than I do basketball now. So it's just awesome, and I'm glad to keep learning and watching for sure. But the next question have, as a program, we kind of mentioned it before, Wauseon's always been known to have a really good wrestling program. What needs to happen for Wauseon High School to get to that next level, be that state powerhouse where you consistently have, high individual state champions and state championships as a team? What's the next step for that process?
Well, I think it's just consistency in our youth program, because that ultimately is our feeder system. And, kids need to give it more time. Parents need to give it more time so they can develop and grow through the process. I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard that term, trust the process, but that is really true, because you're not going to be that instant. You're not going to have that instant success in a lot of cases. And for us to grow as a community program, we need to have that level of involvement with the youth parents, the youth kids, and continue to build and just consistency throughout our youth junior high programs, so that when we get to high school, these kids have had a level of experience. They're comfortable in our system, and now we're just refining things as a finished product. So, we've enjoyed that kind of success for several years now. We like everybody else was really hurt by COVID with the youth system, and we're still feeling the effects a little bit. We're getting it back to where it used to be, but it's still taking a little time. But that to me is the biggest thing, just the consistency with the youth system to help build our junior high and high school.
Last thing I have for you, Coach. I know there are many great things about coaching, but if you had to choose just one thing, what do you enjoy most about coaching wrestling?
I think it's watching kids develop. I'm involved in our youth system, so I watch them as they're young, and they go through our youth system, our junior high system, and into our high school system. But what's neat for me is to see something click, and something maybe we've been working on, and now all of a sudden it goes and it translates and it works in a match situation, and to see the reaction from the wrestler, or watching them win a big match. I mean, I just feel like, hey, that's a part of our program. That's something that we've done as coaches, and to me, that's the most fun part.
Well, Coach, you nailed this podcast. I just want to say thank you for coming on. I've really enjoyed listening to you tell your story, and then also give us a little bit of inside info about what's going on at Wauseon High School in the wrestling program. So I just want to say thanks again, and you have any final words?
No, I appreciate you guys asking me to come on. I'd be happy to come on at any time, and I'd love to promote the sport of wrestling and answer those kind of questions anytime I'm asked. So I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
All right. Well, we would like to thank all of our sponsors: 3Chord, Bat and Stevens Body Shop, Tenor Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, Drop Zone Pizzeria, Optimal Performance Fitness, Crystal Vasquez of Mermaid Realty, and LC Tiger Sports Live. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports Podcast in the near future, and thanks for tuning in.